Hey, everybody, this is Jason Scheff.
I'm Jay DeMarcus from Generation Radio, and you're listening to
Talking About Rock.
Okay, today's guests have created a new project that not only honors the legacy of A&R and West Coast rock, they elevate it. Combining elite musicianship and genre-crossing influences, you get Generation Radio. They've just released a new single and video for The Melody from their new studio album, Take Two, due out on April 17th on Frontiers Music. Joining us now, let's welcome Jason Scheff and Jay DeMarcus from Generation Radio. Guys, how are you?
Doing great, man. How are you?
What's going on, Robert?
Doing very well, very well. So going through the album here, so you guys got a lot of classics here really that we're talking about. So we got Here I Go Again from Whitesnake. Of course, you got, Chicago's You're the Inspiration. You got the Kenny Loggins track, I'm All Right. And we got a rock version of the Rascal Flatts classic, These Days. So kind of a lot of stuff going on here. Really cool.
Thank you so much. It seemed appropriate to do our own interpretations of songs that we've been doing since we've been out playing live as a band. And our fans have been asking for those versions to be recorded. So it was fun to get in and sort of put our own spin on some classics.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing I was reading here, the single Montana Sky was actually written for Chicago 30 back in the day, right?
It sure was. Yeah, we Jay and I met originally in 2002 and have been joined at the hip ever since. And so we started writing songs immediately, which actually became the catalyst to get Chicago back in the studio, as you said, for Chicago 30 in the mid 2000s. And so when we were getting together with Chaz Sanford, who I co-wrote What Kind of Man Would I Be for Chicago, and we got together with Chaz, Jay, and myself, and then eventually with Bill Champlin to write for Chicago 30. And several of those songs ended up on the record, but we couldn't hog them all, and so we let Montana Sky go off to the side for a while. But we've talked about how happy we are that happened because it was timely to come out now. We're really excited about it.
Yeah, and I think I was also reading during that Chicago record, you brought in him to produce. And is that kind of how you guys first got together with that? Is that kind of how the collab started, or?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It was a real organic series of events. Jay reached out to me. Rascal Flatts was playing a venue 2 nights before we were in 2002. And they were just starting to take off. I knew nothing about the country world. I wasn't raised on country music, so I really wasn't paying attention. But Jay left this great letter to me saying, that he was, Chicago was one of his favorite groups, inspired him a lot. And he particularly was telling me that he followed my era of the band. So it was really a moment for me where all of a sudden I saw this next generation, and when I saw what Rascal Flatts was doing, and for Jay to say that I had any type of DNA into that really was a great moment for me to realize this is your legacy of Chicago, Jason. And also to realize that I was not in the 11th inning of my career. There was a whole new chapter that was getting started, and Jay was really the guy that lit the fire. So I started coming back to Nashville, and we started writing a bunch of songs, and Jay was always saying, when things calm down for both of us in both of these bands, let's do something together. But in the meantime, we were amassing all these tunes, and all of a sudden, Chicago, a couple of guys were talking about getting back in and making a record. Hadn't been in the studio for 16 years. The idea originally was that we were going to each pick 2 songs. Every guy in the band was going to be able to have 2 songs on the record we were all gonna self-produce ourselves, and I was thinking that's not a great idea. And so I sat down with our manager Peter and said, so I hear we're going to go make a record. And he goes, yeah. And I said, the self-producing thing. He goes, no, that's a bad idea. I said, I've got an idea. You like the songs that I'm playing you, that I'm working with my buddy Jay. I said, why don't I step aside and let my buddy Jay produce my 2 songs? And Peter says, he's got to produce the whole record. That's literally how it happened, because he heard what he was doing, and he also knew the focus. And as Robert Lamb, Jay, go ahead and tell him what Robert called and said, which was really the smart thing to do.
Yeah, I was at my mother's house in November of 2005. I never will forget this. Got a call that I didn't recognize, but I knew it was a California number, and it was Robert Lamb. And he said, Jay, we've been hearing what you've been doing with Jason Scheff, and they sound like Chicago records for the most part anyway. So I'd like to offer you the opportunity to produce Chicago 30, if that was something you'd be up for. And, I just about dropped the phone. It was a dream come true for me. And it just was one of those moments in time I'll never forget, kind of frozen in time there. And it was an opportunity of a lifetime to grow up loving that band and be a fan of it. And then to have the great honor of working with them on Chicago 30 was something, a watershed moment for me in my career.
But he also said to Jay, which is an important part of this, he said, you have full autonomy. So they saw
just what
he was doing and said, you are the authority, which was a really great moment, because as you can imagine, and Bill Champlin and I are super tight, and he thanked me later once he came out and we started working on that record, as well as Lamb did, that they saw that this was not a singer of the band with a producer wanting to run off with this. We were really bringing everybody in together. And, Bill told me later, he says, of course I was skeptical, but once we got into the rooms together and started writing, he said, oh, this is not about you trying to serve yourself. You're thinking of the band. I said, of course I am. So that's when Lamb said, he knew, he said, and it is important to do that. Otherwise the inmates would run the asylum. I mean, there's some strong personalities, but Jay did such a fantastic job. So yeah, Montana Sky was written for that particular project, but now it's seeing the light of day.
Yeah. Very, very cool. And Jay, obviously, tons of stuff with your career. You've racked up 17 #1 hits, over 23.4 million albums sold, 35 million digital downloads, Grammy winning producer, definitely an amazing career with Rascal Flatts for you, just getting that out there for my audience. If they're not aware of that, some of the accolades you've definitely had, amazing.
Well, I appreciate that. And, one of the funny things that we always talk about making this record is like, what's a country guy making a rock record and with these guys, Steve Ferrone and Jason Scheff. And the irony is I grew up loving all the records that those guys played on. That's in the fabric of my DNA musically. I grew up on 80s rock and roll. I mean, it was at the very heart of what all of my influences were. And I very much grew up on country music too, and I love that as well. But if you listen to the thread of our records over time, you'll hear those influences that we've snuck into our Rascal Flatts records over the years. I mean,
I was going to say, those are like interweaved in that almost, right?
We always joked about the fact that we were trying to be the Journey of country music with just steel guitar on top of it.
Yeah, you guys definitely did an amazing job for sure. So let's talk a little bit about your history, Jason. We mentioned it earlier. If folks don't know, you joined Chicago in 1985, replacing Peter Cetera on lead vocals. Debuted on the '86 single 25 or 6 to 4. Remade the band's original big 1970 hit song. Were you real nervous getting into this band at that time? I mean, they were a pretty big name. Peter wanted to go out on his own. How did you feel about that situation? Do you recall?
Well, absolutely. I was nervous to an extent, but I think the only way that I was able to even put one foot in front of the other and move forward on it was that I didn't think it was going to work. I didn't have expectations on it. I thought there's no way this is going to work. They picked the wrong guy, and it'll eventually, I'll crash and burn at some point. But they were so great, all the way from management to the band to the record label, that you're the guy. And I'm going, wow, I sure don't see that. But they obviously knew something because it worked. But It was one of those things that, and I love sharing this with up and comers that put so much pressure on themselves, that I walked in and thought, this is going to be over before it starts because I'm just so outclassed. But when the red light went on with David Foster and Humberto Gatica, I just felt comfortable. It was the craziest thing, and I drilled it. We sailed through Chicago 18. There was zero problems, and I'd heard what an ogre David Foster was with real singers like Barbra Streisand.
Right. He has kind of a reputation, right? Doesn't he?
Yeah, but I'm telling you, man, it was like...
That's what makes him great.
Yeah, that's exactly right. David is phenomenal. But it was just that moment, and I had the support, at least to get the shot to do it. And then, sure enough, once I passed that test, I've never been the same. I mean, it was a transformation. Now, I remembered thinking, okay, I've gotten through that part of it, but we still have to go out on the road, which was a big adjustment for me to be standing center stage, and very intimidated with that.
Right.
But again, Robert Lamb and Bill Champlin took me under their wings, and so it's crazy to think back on it. It was a one in a million thing, just like with what happened with these guys. But that's when destiny, fate, God, whatever, intervenes, and here we are.
Yeah, I think that's always one of the most difficult things when you try to replace the lead vocalist. I mean, he's not just the voice of the band, he's the face of the band. That's a lot of times that's really a gamble, whether it's going to work out or not, even if the artist is great. But you sang with Chicago for over 4 decades. So.
Yeah, it's then people, you can't discount this either. Peter and Champlin had a very unique chemistry too, with the way that they changed off and mixed the textures of their vocals and handing it off to each other. I mean, that's no easy task to replicate. So there was the whole uncertainty of that too. I remember Jason sitting here saying he didn't think it was going to work. Well, neither did I.
Right.
When I heard that Peter Cetera left, I was like, they're going to be hard pressed to find somebody that can fill in seamlessly and still create that kind of chemistry with Bill Champlin. And so when I heard Will You Still Love Me on the radio, I never will forget almost having chills, because I was like, they've got a guy he doesn't sound like Peter, but it has that familiarity to it, and he's playing bass on top of it, and it just found a perfect replacement. And I hate to say all those great things about him sitting right next to me, but
because he's already so out of control, right?
Yeah.
You know what's awesome too that I'm thinking of, and I'm looking at the graphic of our record, Take Two. Here's what I'm really grateful for, is that these guys brought me in Chicago to be the future of the franchise. They saw something, they believed in me, all the way up to the record label management. They saw something that I didn't see. And not to take anything away from other singers that get into bands that carry the torch really well, but one thing that I'm very grateful for is, from note one, going in to cut that record, we made a big hit record. And it's sometimes you can get into a band and it's great, you can perform their music, but right out the gate, Will You Still Love Me, number 3, one of Chicago's biggest hits, that completely transformed me, because I realized, and I had Champlin, it's like, as Bill would always say, you print really well. That's recording. And it's also phrasing, the whole 9 yards. I talked to all of my contemporaries, all of my friends that are really great, iconic artists and singers, and that's the secret sauce. And I'm looking at the graphic and realize that that's what brought me to this point with Jay and this band, is that we record, we make hit records, and so this is really the culmination of it. So I'm extremely grateful. Thanks for taking me down memory lane, man.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I've been listening to the tracks for like a week or two or so, and they just sound great. definitely. What you guys got going on, what you've captured on here, you know, with those different songs, just sounds amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to touch on, just to kind of finish up with the Chicago history here a little bit. In 2016, after performing with Chicago at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that's when you kind of took a leave of absence from the band, and you toured with some other big artists here, Todd Rundgren and Christopher Cross at times as well.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. I had a good 30-year solid run with Chicago. We played 120 plus dates a year, never home, which was a great thing. But, you know, when life hits, you know, and my wife's parents got ill and it was time to go and really take care of the family, I'll never be able to thank the guys in the band enough for understanding that I had to go and do that. And then now it's beautiful. I'll be 64 in April, and I get to not be gone all the time. I get to do this with Jay. Jay's got Rascal Flatts, so this is awesome. It just fits into all of our schedules. And then I get to do these cool things, like you say, with Todd Rundgren and Christopher Cross and all of the friends we've made. It's crazy. Jay and I talk about it all the time, that we grew up on all this stuff, and they're all of our friends now. And
yeah, that's got to feel very surreal at times, right?
It does. It's a beautiful time right now.
Excellent, excellent. So we can't stop without asking about Rascal Flatts. Where are they at? What's the status with them? What's going on with Rascal Flatts?
We just wrapped up our tour for this year. We started in January and toured through the 5th of March. We've got some summer festivals this year, about 6 shows left. But for the last couple of years, we've gone out at the beginning of the year in 25 and this year in 26 and done about 24, 25 shows. It's the perfect amount to go, you know, play the music, see the fans, and really appreciate what we've built together. I think that's the one thing that's resonated with me over the last couple of years, is that I appreciate it now more than I probably ever have. It's easy to get complacent when you're on the hamster wheel of constantly touring and making another record, only to tour again, make another record, only to tour again. So I think that the 5-year hiatus really put me in a place to where I appreciate not only what I've built with the guys, but appreciate those guys in my life too, and how much of a big part of it that they've been in my adult life and my career, you know. And Gary's my second cousin, and both of those boys are like brothers to me, and really love what we have together is very, very sacred and special.
Yeah, definitely. I know you guys got a great following, and people are loving that. So very, very cool. Thank you for the update. So, Jason here, what are the next steps for Generation Radio? You guys got more singles you're going to release? You got videos? What's going on next?
Yeah, so the second single was just released, The Melody, which we've always loved. Tom Yankton, just such an earworm. And so that just came out. The entire record will come out April 17th, I believe.
Yeah.
And then we're in the process of with a new agency and management to really make a push to support this record and get out and do some touring dates. So we're really working on the fall, and yeah, that's what we're doing here, talking to you and all the good folks. Really, you know, really putting a good push into this now. So hopefully, where are you located?
In Western New York. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, hopefully
Nice.
get to see you soon.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right. So yeah, show dates hopefully coming up. So folks, you can check out generationradio.com to see what's happening with that. I'm sure the dates will be posted when you guys have those there. All right. And Take Two from Generation Radio, like you were saying, drops April 17th from Frontiers Records. All right, guys, best of luck on the new album. Very, very cool. And you can stream Montana Sky now and catch the videos for Generation Radio and a haul of videos at talkingaboutrock.com. All right. Thank you so much, Jason Jay, for being with us today.